All right, tonight we are talking about Lightning Web Components. All eyes have been accounted for, and this is System.debug.
It's so much better when you're here to do the pump.
I
love
love the
it.
bump.
Yeah,
I will say I may or may not have clipped RJ saying beep 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 beep, beep, and we may use that one of these times just for the fun of it.
So what about this new bump?
New bump.
that bump.
That bump.
This new bump you created.
Oh, that's the one, RJ.
Oh,
So on the
gotcha.
episodes that I miss, somebody always winds up just kind of like singing it, and I'm really considering like just surprising you all one time with it. Just you don't know when it's coming, but it's gonna come, and it'll just be boop boop boop. It sounds like the McDonald's thing. We're gonna get sued. Yeah.
Well, didn't
Oh.
before. Now that you drew that correlation, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, right. Now I can't stop thinking about it. But we're so much more hip than I probably can't say that either. We'll get sued there too. Well, they're never going to sponsor us, Brian. Anyway, so this is our last episode of the year, maybe? No, yeah, because I imagine we wouldn't do one on the 31st.
We wouldn't?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it.
New Year's Eve special, hackathon till the 2019.
Well, if y'all can figure it out, if there's enough demand, then I might be able to swing an early New Year's Eve one. But as it stands right now, I have no clue what's going on New Year's Eve, so I may not even be in town. I'd be maybe many miles from internet. Who knows? So
You live in Wisconsin.
Sounds like
You're
you
always
have a
miles from
life,
internet.
man.
very funny. That's true. This is true. All right.
All right, so Lightning Web Components. When was the first time you guys heard about this thing?
Okay, so go ahead, Megan. You first.
About a week ago.
Brian?
I heard grumblings of this a long time ago.
Really? I just heard last week, too.
Yeah, the most of the world just heard last week. But yeah, I had heard even before I went to work for .org, I had heard that something was coming along the lines of this. I don't even remember where I heard it, how I heard it, but I think it was just kind of floated. And then when I actually joined .org, I got to see some of the documentation and stuff like that, and I just never bothered digging in. I just didn't have that kind of time. So I may have known this was coming, but I know far less than most people probably already on it. So, I've been through the trailhead like everybody else. I've read through some documentation, did a little bit of playing over the weekend. But from what I've seen so far, I like what I've seen. It's going to be a learning curve again. I feel like we just learned something already with all these developers who were Apex developers, and then we were learning Lightning, and now we got Lightning Web Components. So I feel like there's going to be some confusion, but I think it's good growing pains. I think this is a step in the right direction. So that's me. What's your impression so far? After all, you said you read like all the documentation today or something like that. You said it was a lot to get through, but you got through it.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, like, you have to read the documentation.
Well,
It's the only way you're going to figure it out. Plus the fact that, like, the Trailhead module, though, gives a good example of, like, look at the new toy. There's zero information as to what you're actually developing there. I mean, if you know some of the other modular ES6 code frameworks, and it's like you can, derive some stuff out of it. But other than that, like, I think for a lot of people who are specifically Lightning developers, or even the previous Visual Force developers, where you were just using, a lot of people are still just on ES5. That's what they know. That's what works, or they're maintaining. So there's no point in, converting it over. Plus, if you're in certain browsers, ES6 is still being, like, IE, Edge. Those both have issues with, like, the linter and stuff. So
right. And so when you're saying ESX, you're talking about ECMAScript and then the version, right?
correct.
So I wouldn't even know the difference between 5 and 6 or anything like that. I have never been that deep into the JavaScript world. So from what you've seen so far, is this really similar to React or Angular? Because I've only just recently just started, because I know this was coming out, trying to get a jump on things by reading up on Angular, reading up on React, things like that.
Well, it's funny because there was some, like when you're looking over it, there's aspects of it where if you've programmed in Angular, it's somewhat familiar, and you go, "Oh, that's cool. At least like I can still do a lot of the same stuff that I could do with Angular." But I would actually say it's much more. I would say it's much closer to Vue than anything else that I've seen. The way everything it kind of gets scripted, outside of the fact that like with Vue, you're writing your template and then all of your like JavaScript and handling code all kind of goes below it in a Java or a JSON object, and your methods and all the JavaScript's kind of all inside that one file. And that was also the difference between Lightning and Vue in my mind, even though they're both modular frameworks, right?
Mhm.
But you have to also have that JavaScript file attached to that view, if nothing else, just to import everything else, right? Because you still have to import your Lightning elements. And in the case of the Trailhead module, you know, you have to import tracks so that you can actually, you know, keep track of variable usage,
yeah.
right? And that's also like how they're utilizing it with that input, so that as you're changing it, you know, it's automatically tracking that change and updating that greeting variable at that point, which is a global variable, you know.
Yeah. Which I found interesting because that was not something I was used to seeing, obviously, in regular Lightning components. And this is where I'm going to struggle, I think, the most is what do I call everything anymore? We got Lightning web components, but I thought that's what we were using before. It was Lightning and it was components. But anyway, so with LWC, the first thing I noticed right away is opening up that JS file is we've got import and then the I can't even remember what it was now. Something and then
Export.
yeah, all
Oh,
of that stuff. The import and export statements and everything. I have it over here in my other browser just so I can read it. So yeah, import Lightning element, comma track from LWC. So to me, that's very. I want to say that's almost Python-esque, where you have something that lives in a class or a file somewhere, and you're importing it and calling it something, and you're telling it where to get it from. And the same thing with, you know, if you're calling Apex from within it, you're importing the name of the method from the class, and then you're able to use the name of that method later down when you actually call it. At least that's in the imperative Apex call. So I've been digging around trying to learn from the sample galleries that the Trailhead links to. So if you click on that, it's got all these sample galleries, and then you can go and view them on GitHub and you can see the code. And so that's how I found out how I actually call Apex. You know, I'm wondering, do we still use Aura enabled? It appears we do.
well, you can actually, yeah, you can still call Lightning components from inside that, and it's actually that in ES6, JavaScript introduced classes so that you could actually have more object-oriented code to them. And so that's where I would probably more take that from. And you're basically attaching, at that point, you're attaching that JavaScript controller to the actual component that you're writing.
Okay.
And that's going to handle all the other imports, so that if you want to attach that class to other things or pull in other types of components, you're going to import those into that JavaScript file so that your current component has access to those global variables.
Got you. See, so this is kind of sinking in, yeah. And you went through the documentation, right? And I don't think it really talks about any of that, though. That documentation is really just about how to use the various components that are there already, right? It's
Oh,
not
no, not at
talking
all. You
about.
just actually have to click on the developer section, because if you click on the developer one, not only does it talk about like the way to actually build your components. So for instance, they talked about naming schemes in there for your folders, right? And how that when you're naming your folders, you should actually be using a camel case style of a naming convention, because it'll actually extrapolate that into kebab style, where it has the dashes between the words,
Oh,
so that when you call your component from another one, that's how you're doing it. Sort of like when you're attaching another Lightning component, it's like C colon, but in the examples in the documentation, it's like my content, and it's done in camel case. And then when it's calling the component, it's going C colon my dash content or component instead of the camel case that you're naming it. But there's a whole bunch of documentation, and also on like restricted keywords. So like in Vue, we use slot to determine, you know, different things in a modal or whatever. But that's a restricted keyword or a protected keyword inside of Lightning web content. I'm sorry, you talk.
No, that's fine, and you're doing just great. I'm laughing because because I only clicked on. So I'll be honest, I checked this on Friday after I did the trailhead, and I'm like, I want to find more information, you know. And I was looking around, and the component reference wasn't updated there at that time. It just had the old Aura stuff sitting there. It's funny that I'm calling that old, but the Aura stuff sitting there. And so I didn't even think to click on any of the other tabs that are there until just now when you said, oh, you just got to click on the developer part. And there's the actual meat that I was looking for. I thought all we had to go off of was this component reference. Oh my God. So yeah.
But there are a lot of components. There's like 200 and some, right?
Yeah, there's a ton. I honestly don't have the answer to that question.
It's listed right there. Did you look at the website or did you see a picture of it?
No, I'm on the website. I didn't count them. You had 200. I don't know.
No, it says it right there.
Does it?
Yeah, no. Look at the component reference when you click on it, and then it says right at the top, I'm pretty sure.
I'm clicking, but it's not changing for me right now.
230.
Freaking out.
There's 230.
Good. Well, see, why do I need to click on it if I know you're going to click on it? That's what I always say. Brian's going to click on it. But what I was actually getting at is, like, if you look all the way at the last tab, I did click on the playground, which is really cool. I haven't messed with it yet. But
there's links to all of this. And actually, I'm doing this, like, legitly this time because there's really links below.
Yeah, you really did put the links in the description. I didn't verify that, but you said you did.
No, I really did this time. There's a link to the trailhead. There's a link to the documentation, as well as a link to the playground. And you can actually get to the GitHub. If you look through the documentation, there was something there about that, but I couldn't, the link was down for me when I was attempting to utilize it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and it's funny, now my page finally loaded. I did get a little error that's like, hey, do you want to wait for this page? So, yeah, but 230 components. I didn't know that. Didn't notice it yesterday. But yeah, go out there and play on that playground. Looks like they give you like just a default app with a CSS file, an HTML file, an app.js. There's main.js. I didn't even click on that one yet. So there's a lot there. And then again, inside of those GitHubs, there's a lot of stuff to look at. They give you the examples of imperative Apex and then wiring it to either using @wire. You can wire it directly to a method or even like a property. So you can have the whole like contact list and then you wire it directly to that property that does the check. And I think that's, I would suppose that's, uses the same advantages if you were doing it in Visual Force and Apex and all that, using a property versus method calls, etc. So yeah, I'm impressed with what I've seen so far. And, granted, I've only spent an hour screwing around. I'm excited to see what people start doing with it.
So for developers who are already using Lightning and they're like, man, I finally learned Lightning and this kind of like makes me mad. The same sort of thing a lot of us Visual Force developers felt when Lightning came out. One, even Trailhead made it seem harder to set up than it is, because Trailhead actually has you walking through setting up your Salesforce DX and creating a Scratch org, attaching it to a developer org and all that kind of stuff. But if you've already set up your Salesforce DX, then you're good to go on that front. You can just kind of like get right in there and mess with it. The other side of things is a lot of the stuff that they have you doing, Visual Studio Code will do for you. So it tells you in the Trailhead to, copy and paste this block of stuff into the XML file. But Visual Studio Code, if you have the plugin, is going to do that for you automatically. Correct, Ryan?
Oh, that XML thing, I still had to do that in Visual Studio. I forgot they did have a section in the Trailhead where they give you some XML to paste in there.
Okay, so that's that metadata XML that we were talking about. All right.
Yeah.
So that might be a little bit of frustration right there.
Yeah.
But I also think that when you're reading through it, that's where you're going to be handling your implements. So where it's what types of record pages or home pages or apps and things like that it's available for. The other thing is that a lot of the same limitations because of content content security policies still exist. Okay, so you still can't just load in external resources. You're going to have those available as static resources in your org, as zip files or standalone, either way. But remember, it's better to put them in a zip file just in case other people are also naming their JavaScripts like jQuery. You want to make sure that you're actually putting that in a zip file, so when you're using your managed packages, that other people who put jQuery in their orgs don't get conflicts. Nonetheless, that's a side note, but one to note.
It's still very valuable to have that information.
So you're still accessible to those, but if you want to make call outs to APIs and things like that, you're going to have to release it in the content security policy trusted sites, as well as your remote site settings in the Salesforce. So talk to your admins.
Yeah. And I'm going to put Megan on the spot real quick, since Megan is currently in the consulting world. How do you feel this is going to impact your developers, your customers, dev teams? Do you see this shaking things up for a bit? You see people panicking and running for the hills? What's your gut feeling on this one?
So I'm actually pretty excited. So for one, it's something new for me to learn. I'm one of the people that learned on Salesforce. So unlike a lot of the Salesforce developers and architects out there, I don't have that. I went to school for development background. I learned hands-on when I started as an admin, so I learned hands-on when we needed somebody to help the dev team. And that's how I kind of got thrown into things. So this is exciting for me because it's something new that I get to learn because I have a use case to do it. But also it's an opportunity for, there were things with Lightning that could have been improved. And so this gives us more opportunities to hire developers that have experience working with some of the things that are now embedded into the Lightning web components. It expands things with flexibility to allow, more opportunities for people with a background to be able to work with Lightning, to have, that, as well as gives more flexibility, and it's exciting. Everybody likes new stuff. But at the same time, I can see it causing problems where now you have people that, oh, it's new, I want it, but it's one of those things where it's new, we still don't know everything about it. And trying to get people trained up to speed. To
your point, Megan, to your point, I think hiring developers is going to be that much easier for a lot of companies using the LWC, because of the fact that it is so much more similar to the frameworks that they're learning in schools, that they got from their previous non-Salesforce job, rather than throwing them into Lightning. Now, they're always going to have that same issue of, I don't know what Salesforce is, but I think overall, when you say, here's a text editor, here's a page to view what happens with your code, and utilize a lot of the same knowledge that you already have, it's going to be a lot easier transition. And I think for companies like Map Anything, who obviously is a software company, and so we're always looking for developers with some ability to actually be able to program and be nice with the Salesforce system, it's hard to find ones who are automatically knowledgeable about Lightning or Salesforce development.
Yeah, I'm speaking more on the idea of, we're going out there to bid a project, and, this is something brand new. We don't know how the Lightning side works and how to work with it based on this is what we've been doing, this is what we had planned for, now there's something new out. Are we going to do a shift in the project? How much do we start to change? Is this something we jump on right away, or something we jump on learning right away? How long do we wait till we switch over to using that for our build, that kind of thing? We're on the logistics side. And, it's just more about getting hands-on experience with it before we, and seeing what it's going to take and how much more time it'll take before we can actually do like an actual project of saying, this is how long it'll take us to do it. So this is our new way of estimating with it. But, I totally agree with you where, it's based around things that people actually have experience in versus, something like, Visual Force that nobody had ever heard of before that's coming in, and they're like, I don't know what that is, but I could probably do it. And so versus where it's like, oh yeah, Visual Force, that's, and then, for me, where it's like Visual Force, that's what pages are made out of. And people are just like, I don't know what that crazy lady's talking about. There's no such thing as Visual Force. Like, she's gonna lost her mind.
She's done gone round the bend.
I feel like you're not allowed to say it even. You know what I mean? Like, you're not allowed to bring it up to people. Like, going like, you could make a Visual Force page from like a Lightning component. And you're like,
that's me,
no?
Guilty. Like,
yeah, that's what I meant.
That field service Lightning dispatch component for communities that came out? Did you know that's a Visual Force page that you drop in the Visual Force component?
No, when Lightning Experience came out, it was hilarious because of the fact that with Lightning Experience, almost everything when you switch to Lightning was just Visual Force pages rendered in Lightning. For the longest time, that's how everything was until they finally kind of like transitioned a lot of the styling. But I used to laugh so hard that so many of these were just iframes of the Visual Force, like the object page. You know what I mean? It wasn't an actual Lightning page yet. So I mean,
but I can't think something that just
came
out like last release is on Visual Force page dropped in a Visual Force component.
Yeah,
like it's 2019.
That's pretty. That's pretty impressive.
That's mind blowing to me.
Depressingly impressive, but impressive nonetheless.
I keep going the other way. I still feel more comfortable with Visual Force than Lightning. I feel really comfortable building Lightning components, but making a whole thing, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I still make a Visual Force page, and then I just use Lightning out, and I just drop all my Lightning components into my. Yeah, and I don't know why, but I just don't feel confident.
Dude, you might as well just go back to I++, man. You just broke my heart again. My heart is broken. It's funny. I think it would take me twice as long to do a Visual Force solution now over a Lightning solution. And I
still make the components in Lightning. Like, I still make Lightning components. I just make them talk to each other in Visual Force.
No. Of course, I say all of this, and to be 100% transparent, I actually haven't shipped real code in months, right? I mean, I just haven't had to. I'm more at the code reviews level and kind of architecting stuff. I really haven't had to actually make stuff happen, right? But nice. I sit back and I'm hearing this conversation and I'm remembering like how excited I was when they first started talking about Salesforce DX and making the repo the center of your project stuff. I was like, oh, we're finally moving into what the rest of the world is doing. It's going to open up doors for more people. And now they've done this. And it's yet another step. Those doors are getting even wider open to the platform. And I'm excited because we all know, if you're part of hiring or anything, how hard it is to find developers for the platform right now. We're really a hot commodity. And if we've opened the doors to modernize how we actually work, there's more people to become developers. It's awesome.
Is it? Because don't you feel a little bit like job security? Like, I get a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you.
I'm not nervous. I know that there are so many people out there that can write code so much better, faster, more reliable than me.
They're half our age, Brian. This is the problem.
That's fine, man. That's fine. They need somebody who can still be, at the corporate level and speak the corporate talk and, not say stuff like, bro. Just kidding.
Got your back, bro.
Got your back, bro.
No, so I guess if that means anything, that we should all just learn this now. We should learn it while it's new to us.
Yeah.
And then become masters of it so that we can actually lead the teams that are going to be getting hired in the next generation of Salesforce developers.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression that, moving forward, if I had a brand new project, let's fast forward a month or so, or let's even fast forward to the actual release when it's GA and everything, right? Because right now, even to go to the Trailhead, you have to get up a pre-release org and make that your dev hub. I made that mistake by using an existing one. It wasn't pre-release and stuff didn't work. I needed my pre-release org. But so fast forward to the point where we've played with it for a few months, a new project. I think the impression that I get anyway is that they want people to start, hey, if you got something new, use Lightning Web Components. Don't use Aura, use Lightning Web Components. So I feel that's the direction, and I would be absolutely, if I think I had to build a brand new GUI or something, I would absolutely try it in that now. I don't know. I don't
Has
know if it's
anyone
going to
in
retire
chat
the old stuff. Go ahead.
has anyone in chat actually messed with LWC at all yet?
No, Mark Adcock said
He spent a
one.
minute.
Yeah, because 1 hour is exactly 59 minutes more than he spent with it. We've also got Melissa Hildees out there saying that her dev team, she's pretty sure they won't even touch it until it's aged appropriately. So,
Like a fine wine or
like
cheese.
a fine wine. Yeah, you got to open it up, let it breathe.
No, absolutely. You know what I mean? You got to check that rind. It's got a nice bloom on it.
The skin. Yeah, we'll see how much of this sticks.
You know, that's also part of like how long until you actually start using it on projects. Because you know, like when Lightning first came out, there was the fact that like go back to communities. How often did Salesforce start changing things before all of a sudden stuff started blowing up in your face? Like, and then you know tags would change, and all of a sudden all the container names changed on communities when you were building themes and stuff, and that was terrifying. So yeah.
Well, what's really crazy is that as they introduce these new frameworks, they have to keep supporting them. Like you can keep developing in Visual Force, right? Like if you don't want to do anything else, you could still stay in Visual Force. There's got to be some kind of and that's what I was going to say is that like what's the statute of limitations? And I know that like I just got an email that said, hey, just to let you know, in October of 2019, they're going to start like really pushing the Lightning stuff, right?
Yeah, they're going to slowly roll that out to if you have people in your organization that have the Lightning experience users permission, they're going to get presented with a dialog box that says, hey, switch to Lightning, click.
Classic, you mean?
No, they'll get the thing say, hey, try Lightning, right? They get that.
Oh, the switch to. Gotcha.
Yeah, the switch to. Yeah, not like switch back to. So, I mean, I think the only out people have there is to make sure nobody in their org has that permission, and I can't imagine it turning on. But I gotta think at some point they're just going to be like, okay, you're done, right?
Ryan, Melissa just messaged. Is that true?
October 2019, no more support for Force. Oh, yes. I don't know the exact date. That's the first time I saw that date, at least as far as remembering. But yes, they are. The Force.com IDE, I believe, is being officially like retired. We're not going to touch it anymore. And I think they're pushing everybody towards VS Code.
Watch the updates on the GitHub for information about the Force.com IDE.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's going away. And then, so Mark is also saying, because we kind of sidetracked into the Lightning experience thing, Winter 20, he says Lightning will just be enabled. But if you read the press release or whatever, the link that just went out, there's an italicized section that says for people who have the Lightning user experience permission. So I would imagine if you created a profile and didn't, or if you added users to that permission, you could take it away and they wouldn't get it. But I'm definitely would not recommend doing that. I would recommend going to town and making sure your org is ready for Lightning. The benefits to me far outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, there's no reason to be not be using it.
Well,
do we wish that you could have more tabs easier? Yes, but it's not going to happen for right now. So, but you should make the switch.
It's similar to how Salesforce was going to retire notes and attachments, though, and force you to use files, but that's been delayed. First, the button was going to go away, and then they were going to make it so that you couldn't use it anymore and force you to migrate your data over. That's why they have the convert notes and attachments to notes and files. But it seems like that's been delayed indefinitely. But yeah, I don't know if you have any updates on that one, Ryan.
I do not.
Yeah,
I do not. And even if I did, I have even if I did have them, I don't think I'd be allowed to talk about them anyway.
Yeah, we should just get Ryan a forward-looking statement. Can we get him just a forward-looking statement? And that way, anything he ever talks about on the show, he's already warned everyone.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there are things I could say that I would lose my job over if I wasn't careful. So but to that, I mean, I really don't have that kind of information. I am so far removed from everything that core engineering is doing. I mean, basically, Salesforce.org is just a big ISV. So
why did you tell me and RJ you were basically the CEO?
So yeah, that was a summer 17 release notes thing. That wasn't just like random news.
Really?
We were supposed to be retired winter 18 and make the button disappear. But apparently nobody knew about it, so that didn't end up happening. People didn't read release notes front to back. I got all my orgs ready for it too. I was like, yes, we're gonna do this. And they were like, nobody knew about it. Nobody read the fine print. I was like, oh.
Well, it's like when they turned
Speaking
off
of
TLS. What about fine print? Go ahead, speaking of which. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, speaking of which, spring 19 release notes are out. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they came out today
TLS.
too.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Today.
A lot of excitement in the Salesforce world. But I like the big developer changes. But, I mean,
yeah.
that's what it impacts me the best.
Developer changes.
Yes.
Release notes have tons of information. I love them.
Yeah. Well, all right, everybody. It looks like our time is up.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you spending the last half hour with us. You can follow Ryan at Life with Ryan. You can follow Megan at Megan SF.
Yep.
I can never
got it
remember.
right.
Yep.
Megan
You got
SF.
it. You got it.
It's MEIGHAN, by the way. And you can follow me at the infamous RJ.
You're switching ideas now?
I was like throwing people off. I was just like, get him more followers.
I like it.
Go ahead.
There you go.
And talk to RJ. Thank you so much. Jarrett, thank you. Always a pleasure. Everyone have a great night.
All righty. Oh, you know what?
You're going to play us out?
Yeah, I need to play us out, and my phone is dark, so we're just filling the dead air for a moment. Now we're ready to bump out. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Sleeping on the job again.